Hey Zoe, I'm just checking to see if you can hear me because I switched to my AirPods.
Hey Zoe, can you hear me?
So the 21st.
Yeah, Diane, I can hear you. Don't worry.
Here is gonna be playing it.
I can't hear you.
Freshman.
Can you now?
So what will you?
Can
you hear the room?
It's gonna take a long time to break down. Ash green and have gold. Yeah, there you go. You can have a grizzly car.
Like toys.
Oh, yeah.
Stickers. Yeah.
Hello?
Yeah. Sure. Yeah.
Yeah, Diane, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
All right, I got you now.
I wear Notre Dame. Officially wear Notre Dame. Okay. So that's weird. For Madison. He played football for Madison.
Everybody ready? I'd like to call this meeting of the Madison Public Schools Board of Education to an open, and let's stand for the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Right, so first up, we have our school slash community session, which includes public participation. Is there anybody in the audience or online? No, okay. The Board of Ed student representatives report. Hey, guys.
So last week and the week before, there's been a lot of talk in our school about phones and phone usages. This has started in the leadership conference that we had, the student leadership conference, in November, and the Madison Youth Unplugged group. There's 3 parents who came to talk with us and just have an open conversation to really get what our opinions are on the matter. And it was a really respectful conversation. The students had a lot of varying inputs from like the freshmen to the seniors. And basically they came down to the conclusion that, you know, they think that in middle schools and elementary schools, there should be a ban on the cell phones, but the high schoolers are kind of saying how, and also it might be more stressful to not have their phones during class because to check your, like an email super quickly to see if you submitted something that's like, you weren't sure like last night if you submitted it or not, but because a lot of people in our school are so academically rigorous, there's really no time in the day to just be scrolling or just have a ton of time on your phone and if anything, you want to be doing your homework during that time. But anyway, that's a great conversation. Everyone was super respectful for whatever opinions that they had. So then they brought this idea to the advisory curriculum and they talked about the Anxious Generation, the book that I'm probably sure like you all heard of it. Mrs. Salutary loves it and loves promoting it. But this was more of a way to step back outside of the classroom and at your house and on your own time. Are you going to be spending all your time on your phone or are you going to be going out trying new things? And it's kind of, even though a lot of people know the mental health aspect of it, just kind of reminding you and just restating the facts. It feels good to do. And
Sorry, on that issue, either Brooke or Grace, were you involved in the discussion with Madison Youth Unplugged?
I
Yeah, I wasn't able to attend the leadership conference, but with the Madison Youth and Family Services, they presented to that board. So I'm very familiar with that.
Can I ask, either one of you then, if you, whichever you were involved in, when they got student input, what was their reaction to that? Was it an open two-way discussion?
I think they were kind of saying that we are the, not the exceptions, but since a lot of people in the student leadership group are kind of qualified students and have that kind of initiative and innovative mindset, they were really impressed with what we had to say, but they were kind of looking at it in more of a broad aspect. They're like, well, yes, I'm glad that everyone in this group has this outlook on it, but there's a lot of people who aren't as motivated in school to be doing their homework during their extra time. So they were happy with what we had to say, but also we're looking at the kids who might not have been represented in that group of students.
Yeah, and I also think it's important to add that all these parents are children or are parents of youth in the community. So they're experiencing this at the elementary and middle school levels. They don't yet have any high schoolers. So I think they were really curious to see like what that looks like in the lives of high school students, or kind of what to expect for their children, or how to be prepared so that they can better teach their children like safe phone usage. So I thought they were really open. I think initially I was a little like standoffish if they were like condemning any usage of phones, but they seemed really reasonable and they really appreciated our feedback, it seemed.
So what was the final thought of you guys?
Kind of like what I was saying before about the splitting up into different grade levels. They believe that like, and also what we were talking about, a lot of people now, like in our grade, didn't get their phones until we were 13, 14. So we didn't get them until the end of middle school, and we thought that was really great. So we agreed that in the middle schools and elementary schools, we shouldn't have phones. But once it comes up to the high school level, it's kind of a part of your everyday life now. And without having it, you're missing the useful tools, the tools that actually help you in your everyday life, not just.
So you think that you should keep them with you during the day? in
Yeah,
school?
I think that the system that Hand has in place is really reasonable, and I think a lot of students appreciate the fact that your phone should be in your bag during class periods, in the halls, during lunch, you can have access to it, and it's a really good balance. And also we were talking about how phones are so present in today's society, it's not really realistic to just completely ban them. We should be learning how to use them within reason, because in the workday, you can have access to your phones. And you need to learn how to be responsible with it. So I think that they understood that, and we did agree that at the elementary and middle school level, that kind of seems inappropriate to have them being used in class, but when you're high schoolers, you should be able to have them on you, but not in your hands
So
during
it should be
teaching
up to the
periods.
teacher, you feel, to who will be the monitor?
Yeah,
Like, I feel like it kind of has to go down to the teacher, because there can't be someone like Mr. Salvatore or someone with some more authority in every classroom. I think, so it has to kind of be up to the teacher because there's so many classes going on. But I think just having the expectations be set and reminded throughout the year of what the teacher should be doing, maybe like someone with more authority walking in every so often, like once a month or something, just to make sure that everything is going as they are supposed to be doing.
So is it your impression, not only among the Student Leadership Council students, but the broader student population, that students are using their phones responsibly according to the current policy or regulations, or do you think that there's a lot of abuse?
well, from my perspective, I feel like the students in my classes have been extremely responsible and like respectful with their phone usage. In the classes that I'm in, you can't really afford to be on your phone. It would just kind of harm your learning. So I think that the students kind of understand that. And in some classes, we have like a calendar and you have to put your phone in when you walk into. Others, you can have it in your backpack as long as it's not being used. But I think students have done a really good job in it. And definitely my freshman year and part of my sophomore year, the rules were kind of broken and not as put in place, but this year teachers have been really on it, and I've definitely noticed the difference.
So there is.
Yeah. Definitely.
Part of the presentation that was made to the board a couple of weeks ago. Suggested that the phone's impact on socializing, particularly during the lunchroom. So they presented a picture of, some schools where, they could hardly find any students talking to each other. All they saw were, kids looking at their phones. Which then made me wonder, gee, I'd like to see what the lunchroom looks like at hand. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I feel like, if you aren't socializing, I see a lot of people socializing with each other because a lot of people can't during the classrooms because you just have to listen to the notes and everything. But if they aren't socializing, most people are not just scrolling on their phone, most people are doing homework and then asking their friends questions about the homework. I know, obviously there's exceptions, obviously there's some people who sit on their phones, but for the most part, at least in my lunch wave, I see most people either talking with each other or with a notebook or a computer doing work for another class.
And part of the hypothesis that's presented in the anxious generation is aimed more at social media than it is at the actual tool of the mobile phone or the smartphone. Do you feel that the current policy, the way it's in practice this year, that you feel like it's working well? Do you think that helps to diminish pressures from social media? Or do you think that it's just like pounding in on every student all day long when they have their phones?
Well, I think that social media is definitely harmful. I mean, the studies in the book show that, and just from my experience, I've had encounters where I'm like, wow, this is a really negative result from the usage of social media, but I feel like that shouldn't be the school's responsibility. I think that by saying no phones during class periods, that's their attempt to limit the usage of phones. And you make a good point, people aren't on their phones doing whatever, they're usually on their phones accessing social media. But I feel like that should be in the home, or like your parents or your guardians should be the ones enforcing rules on social media. That's not really the school's responsibility. They should limit the access to the phones, but they shouldn't be controlling like, oh, you shouldn't post this online or you shouldn't follow this person, because that seems very personal.
I also feel like if we completely ban them or take them out of schools, a lot of people are gonna be incentivized to find the loopholes and get other ways to get their social media use out of it if you completely ban it, because they're like, well, you're taking it all away from me, like I need it somehow, because it is addicting and you have that feeling to like want to go on it. And also in the student leadership conversation, we were talking more about how, at least now, outside of like in middle school, a lot of people were kind of comparing themselves to others on like Instagram and stuff. But once you go into the high school level, at least this is what was talked about, you kind of feel like it's shifted from looking compared to other people to the worst part of social media being just like you scrolling and you constantly scrolling and you get into this time sucking zone. But in school, if you only have it for 2 minutes in the hallway, you can't really get trapped in that zone, which is what, at least in the high school level, we seemed to be the biggest issue with like social media in our everyday lives.
So Grace, just to follow up on your question, thank you both. This is all great stuff, so thank you. Grace, to follow up on what you just said, you feel like it's the responsibility of the parents and not the school to kind of set boundaries for social media use, for example. But do you think there's a place in education for the school to model and to teach basic concepts of digital citizenship, for example?
Yeah, I definitely think that could be really beneficial for students, and I totally understand when schools get involved with inappropriate social media usage within school boundaries, with school related subjects, that makes sense. But I just feel, and I do think that schools are a place of education, so it makes sense that you're educating your students on proper technology usage and what's appropriate and what's not. But I think regarding like personal, like how much time you're spending on social media or what social media you're allowed to use should be a parental decision because it's different for each kid. I'm one of 4 and one of my brothers doesn't have social media by choice. One is barely on it, I'm on it, and my younger brother isn't allowed to get it yet. So I think that just shows how everybody has different purposes with it. Everybody's going to use it differently, so it's not fair to have one like guideline. Because everybody's different with their usage.
Thank you so much for this input. It's very valuable to us because, you know, as you know, we're confronted with the issue and we're just, you know, as a board, we try and do the right thing. So it's good to have input not only from concerned parent groups on either side, but also from the students. We greatly appreciate it. Anyone else have any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
And I cut you off in the middle of your report, so please.
No, you're all good. So, so other stuff that's happening in school is that Mr. Salutary and there's 2 other, I think Mrs. Witcher and Mrs. De Silva, I'm not completely sure. They went to DC to get their blue ribbon plaque and flag and all this cool stuff. And they were recognized in front of, I think, a ton of people, like 1,000 people. And they were super happy. Mr. Salutary was showing off all his stuff. He's so excited. And kind of to bring us to the students, we're gonna have a winter pep rally this year. I think this is the first time at least that I've had a winter pep rally. It's always gotten canceled or something for some reason, but we're gonna dedicate like some of the time to talking about the blue ribbon status and how great that is and just kind of celebrating the students. And then we're also gonna do the typical sports and captain fun stuff.
So last Friday, we had the Veterans Day Assembly, which I always really appreciate, and the students were really respectful. I thought they were a really good audience, and we had some student performers singing like the national anthem and different songs, and they were incredible. My jaw was dropped. They're such talented like performers at hand. So that was really positive, and then we have exams coming up. We're starting our exam prep next week, which I can't believe the first trimester is coming to an end. Everyone always says that, but like, I feel like that's really relevant because I cannot believe it went by so quickly. And then I mentioned this partially, but the sports seasons are wrapping up for the fall. I'm on the girls soccer team. We got out our first round, so that was unfortunate. And then the boys soccer team was doing really well, but they got out their 3rd round. And then field hockey was our last hope, but they got out tonight, which was really disappointing. And then the last sport still playing is football, and we have our last home game on Friday, and then the Guilford Thanksgiving game, which is always a huge event, but that will be at Guilford, and then they start off playoffs, and they're still undefeated, so I'm hopeful in them too. But that's what we have to look forward to.
Great. Thank you both. Any
Thank
other
you.
questions?
For Mr. Salutary to talk about the great time you had with the 3rd person that went out.
I didn't just the time on it.
That was the highlight.
You gotta write them up.
No.
You weren't even there.
What? Who was the other? Oh, excuse me.
It was a great time, yeah, thank
That's
you.
good.
Yeah.
Do you have any swag?
So memorable.
I know, there's.
So I let him have
Stickers?
all of that.
All the swag.
There was some great stuff, and it was
I'll swear.
it was gonna be part of my report. It was a great time, very eventful and good breakout sessions and professional development for us. So, yeah, thank you. Just teasing.
Thank you both very much, and if you need to skedaddle so you can, I'm showing my age.
Do
but
your
you should
homework.
skedaddle, so you can prepare for your finals, your exams. Please feel free, but thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. That was the part of the agenda where we turn to Dr. Cook for the superintendent's report.
Yes, thank you, Chairman Clapton.
Yeah.
Very excited tonight to have Adam Levitas with us again. I know he doesn't need much intro from the board, but Adam's from Colliers and has been working with the district for several years on new building project. And he has an update for us tonight.
Good evening, everyone. I'm glad to be back. It's been a moment since kind of given the sort of a preamble meeting, which is what this is tonight. before forthcoming votes targeted for the next month or so, but we'll get to all that here in a moment. So this slide deck, my understanding is that it's been shared with you. I'm not going to run through all the slides because many of them get into each individual room, and that's not the point of tonight. The point of tonight is just to give a short update on sort of the process that the town and district have been going through to develop some of these upcoming packages for furniture, AVIT, and playgrounds. So just going to quickly walk through these, and then again, no vote or anything for tonight, but want to set it up for the next month. So just to kind of highlight, this is where we're at in the schedule. Obviously, it's a big, long schedule, and it's hard to see some of the smaller components, but this red line here in the middle is right about where we're at in construction, a little bit more than halfway through. For those that have been to the site recently, you can see we've got walls going up, bricks, interior build out. It's really starting to flesh out the bones of the building. What the focus for this evening is this little lavender area down here for furniture and those other packages for AVIT and playground. So while Gilbane is building the actual building, obviously we went through all the approvals for that before, there are separate packages that we develop and procure outside of Gilbane because quite frankly, it's not necessarily in their scope of expertise. They build buildings, they don't pick out chairs, and procure individual TVs, and things of that nature. So, like I said, those three packages, furniture, AVIT, and playgrounds are being finalized now with various user stakeholders throughout the district. By and large, Dr. Cook and Principal Vicki Frost and Assistant Superintendent Gale, but as appropriate additional stakeholders, which will kind of highlight as we go through some of the slides on what we're developing now. But the key point here is that there's been a lot of preamble work to develop the packages, but we're about to get into the season of approvals. School Building Committee, Board of Education, the state, and then contracting. The end deliverables for these packages are an early IT effort that's namely to get the internet and the network up in the building before it's done being built. So that way the contractors can tie into it with mechanical systems through the actual network and tie into the district and the internet, all of the good stuff. But also over the summer when there's installation of the actual playgrounds, bringing in all the furniture, we want that to happen after construction's done. So that way you don't have dusty, messy work happening while you're taking plastic off of a nice brand new chair. And then also separately the move, but that's not really a package, it's more a retainer mover and coordinate. So that's an item that we have coming, but it's not an approval necessarily like we would have for this board. So highlight some of the actual bits and pieces of these packages, just to kind of graphically show the group. We have the two or the three areas within the new elementary school. The west half and east half of the main or upper level, if you will, and then the east half of the lower level. With the various different components, it ties into their sort of thematic structure. They have the color schemes and palettes, and we're working on graphics right now that can tie into these as well. But with this in mind is how we zoom out from something like an overall rendering down to individual floor plans. So you just saw the west half of the building. We're going through each and every room, and so every single one of these chairs and tables and rugs and all that good stuff, that's being reviewed, specified, confirmed as far as what the town will be purchasing to flesh out the new school. So it's just the east half, similar situation, and then the lower level on the east half. These plans will ultimately be formalized into formal drawing packages that will be part of the approval package. It'll just be a slideshow, but more instructive than probably the drawings are the actual sort of breakdowns of what's going in the room. So I've highlighted a few examples here to kind of show the differences of what's going in different types of rooms, but also kind of be able to speak to some of the process baked into these selections. So you can see a typical pre-K room, and it has things that you might expect in a pre-K room. And the way that this scope evolved was that the architect Tecton, they have a interior design and furniture team that specializes in these components. They're familiar with what pieces are currently being specified in similar schools, what's available on state contract, different pricing levels as you go through, and they understand, particularly because they work with the district on the Brown Elementary School as well, have a good sense of what's going into the buildings. And so they would propose some scope, propose some options, and then work in real time, multiple multi-hour meetings with school administration, staff, teachers to flesh out what they want in each one of these. Does it have a table with casters or no casters? Is it casters in some rooms but not other rooms? So you can kind of compare this to a fifth grade room. It's got components that you expect more for fifth grade than you would for pre-K, which would make sense. But again, you have to go through, and sometimes it's a question of a demarcation. You know, does kindergarten and pre-K and first grade get something, and then we transition in second grade, or does that transition happen in third grade? Those are all discussions that get baked into what's being specified for each of these rooms and spaces. And here, this is just a sample slide from one of the later meetings, kind of identifying again that thought process going in. You know, we don't want this type of chair, we want this chair with the cantilevers. How do they stack? How does that work with maintenance? Where do they go with the rooms? What are the various heights that are being selected? Is it a brand we're familiar with? Or are we going out on a limb and we want to get a sample of this chair to make sure it doesn't feel terrible when you sit in it? So that's the back and forth that's going in, rather than just the architect specifying something and then the town is just living with whatever the architect has specified. So that's again the high level overview. There are more slides again in the packet that's being shown. I'm not going to go through them all today, but as if you decide to dig into it, that's the methodology that went into the furniture package. AVIT is a little less exciting in terms of the actual components. Largely, it's a specifications type exercise to ensure that all the various components for network systems are provided, the quantities are understood, and the actual specifications are aligned with district standards and can work with the broader network at large. As you might tell from the way that this is shaking out, there's a lot of need for ensuring that you're not just going out and getting some wireless access points, for example. You're getting the ones that work with the town systems. So there's always a focus on procurement as you're going through building these types of packages. But with AVIT, it kind of shines through particularly well, because you might have one chair or another chair, but if you have the wrong network switch, your system doesn't work. So there's a heavier emphasis on that level of compatibility when we're building out the AVIT package. And then the third leg of the stool is the playground package. Just to kind of refresh the collective memory, there are 3 playground areas that are within the scope of the project. And Gilbane basically owns the earthwork up until you get to the actual surfacing and the playground equipment. So we have the pre-KK playground here on the west side, and then the 2 areas for the upper grades on the east side of the building. Similar to the furniture package, there'll be a series of plans that go along with them, where I included a slide just to kind of show how the equipment gets specified. Not only what type of equipment do we want to swing, do we want to merry-go-round, what have you, but you have to get into fall height zones and ensuring that when someone jumps off the swing, there's enough rubberized surface within this area to meet standards. More instructively, there's also rendering. So what was particularly, I won't say interesting, but refreshing for this package was the emphasis on inclusivity, and not just, we always hear the students want zip lines, so there is one piece of equipment that there's a zip line component. But also, are we meeting the needs of the students was the thing that was constantly brought up within the development of these packages. So you'll see typical type of slides and findings and what have you, but also the imaginative play. Is it just imaginative play, or is it imaginative play that can suit to a wide breadth of students that have different physical limitations? Here's just the inverse component to that. A good example, I think, of that type of thinking was with this piece here at the forefront, where the initial suggestion from the designer was it's a cylinder component, but it was higher up off the ground. And so this one brought it back down closer to ground level to be more accessible. Another component that was added in the next rendering, you can see there's a shade here added, which doesn't necessarily sound like the most really playground component, but if you're thinking about students that don't want to go on the swings, they want to sit with their friends, they want to play games, they want to what have you. And then there are, components here. I think there's some musical instrument type pieces, if memory serves. But it's not just thinking about how many swings or how many slides or how many of that. It's really kind of incorporate something so that it covers many bases as you can with what you're purchasing.
So zip lines are not incorporated in there.
This component here, it's not a string tied to a tree in another tree.
I
but
just
there is
have heard, I've
There
heard,
is a zip lining component to it, so.
but
That was.
not a true like
No,
900
it
feet.
is not 900 feet in the air, no. I've actually seen this come in and installed in a recent school, and it's pretty cool.
It has the cord in place underneath.
I know, I just,
I know.
I'm
There
just,
were more zip lines. We
Yeah.
said no.
I just wanted to,
But thank you for bringing up the board in place. There is 100% board in place specified for all the playgrounds, so there's not, wood chips you have to maintain, or worse yet, have to, maybe get
but
figured out.
what's on the ground part?
That's
That's what that is.
Board in place rubberized surfacing, so it's.
I mean, it's hard to
squishy.
do an old school nurse, so.
No splinters.
Yeah, no splitter, oh my God, no.
No splinters. So again, maximizing inclusivity and just kind of a nice feel of the playground itself.
No injuries.
So speaking to the timeline, this is just a precursor meeting, the meeting before the meeting, so to speak. We'll be looking to come back to this board. At this point, it's probably not the end of November. It's more likely to be a December meeting to do similar votes as we did with construction. So 3 packages would have 3 votes to them before we go to the state. And so it's not a vote to award. It's a board saying that, yes, we agree that this scope of work is in alignment with the needs of the board, in alignment with the needs of the education specifications. Please go get permission from the state to go and put this out to bid or contract as a firm. Then we look to do our state meetings in December, January, and then going back to the school building committee and the board of selectmen in January, February to. If we have to go to bid, go to bid. If we have to just sign purchase orders, contracts, that's what we'll be doing. That's the end of my piece for this evening. Any questions? Happy to answer them. But like I said, that's it for now. And I share the other material before a vote when it goes around.
Any questions for Ed?
I was about to zip line, that's it.
You're good.
It's all good.
There you go.
And just while you're here, I will share that some of us were able to go on the tour today. It is amazing how that school is coming together. It's exciting. It's, it's on time. And it's really coming together nicely. And you can, you see all the innards right now. But you can imagine how cool it's gonna be when it's done. And, Colliers and, Bain and Tecton. And all the subs have been doing tremendous work, so, and I know it hasn't been easy because of the supply chain issues that we've had, the longer delays on procurement of certain items. But that's all been managed and beautifully, so thank you very much, and thanks to all of our vendors. Doing great work.
It's a great team. It really
Yeah.
is.
Thank
Happy to work with Gobain and Tecton.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you.
Also want to take this opportunity to thank Adam, the amount of calls and time that he's with us on these items, and his patience and guidance has just been phenomenal, also want to thank my whole team, as you can imagine, like the conversations, Art is on those calls, Gail is on most of the calls, but Becky Frost is on all the calls. And so I want to thank Becky for that. I don't know that I would be able to do what she's been doing with this project in terms of picking out colors for the different classrooms and getting teacher input for the different, rugs and what rug and size rug. It's amazing, the details, as you can see from some of Adam's PowerPoint slides. So it's a lot of work. So thank you to everybody who's been part of it.
I know that Adam, your team has been great.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks again. Another item that we had for you tonight was the non-lapsing educational fund update. As the board knows, this is a new state law and we want to take full advantage of this. We have the final number that has been audited and shared with us from Stacy Novitz. So it's $141,000, $189. And so we hope to next time bring with you forward the list of what we would spend this funding on. I have shared before, we're looking at a new scoreboard for the high school. It's we had at least one board member share that they've been at games where the scoreboard's been out. It is relatively old, and then the remaining funds we want this put towards Brown School, specifically 2 classrooms that are going to be preschool for next year, and that would help put money towards that along with other funds that facilities already has allotted for that and get that accomplished. But that would be a separate vote, and we know the process then is to inform the Board of Selectmen and Board of Finance of that. So we just had that update for you tonight, as we will most likely at this time of the year every year. So it's really a great opportunity for us to have those funds available and be able to do projects each year, smaller projects, kind of one-time items. And then just as a update, as our students shared, very busy month, specifically for the high school in particular. On Sunday of this week, NEAS starts their visit. So the board has a role in that, as you know from your calendar update and an email I sent you today. But it's just really at the once in every 10 years that we get to this point with our accreditation process. Very important, and we appreciate NEAS and the way they approach it now, and that they had a team come 2 years ago, and so we are in a really good position. We feel the high school is very well prepared for this, and they use distributed leadership for this. So our coordinators, our teachers have been very involved in the process. So we think they'll be ready. They intend to visit every classroom at least once. So all of our teachers will be visited by the visiting team, and seem genuinely excited about it, and couldn't come at a better time because we've accomplished a lot of those prior area goals. And then also related to NEAS, Gail, TJ, and Michelle Horn will be presenting at NEAS annual conference coming up. And so they have just a really wonderful presentation. I've had a sneak peek of it. It's really looking at the profile of graduate work and how that's embedded in curriculum. And we know we do a really good job with that and have been leading that charge. The district had done that work prior to that being really a NEAS requirement. So they saw us as ahead of the curve, and have asked our small team to present. So we're looking forward to Gail doing that and sharing how that goes. I'm sure that's going to be well attended at a conference that's pretty competitive with the breakout sessions. And then for the board, I know many of the board members are attending the Cape Caps. I'm sure Seth will speak to this under the board comments on Friday this week for the I'll be excited to join you for that and take our picture with the commissioner on I think it's about 10:30 or 11 o'clock when we do that for the board's award for a board of distinction. So look forward to seeing you all on Friday for that. That's concludes my report.
Quick question, so we're meeting Sunday night,
Yes.
is that just an introduction to?
So I had the last time I did that, and so it was prior to Zoom being, or Google Meets being so prevalent. They used to come in and meet in person. It is really the start of their visit, so they are going to be in town, but they're going to be at their hotel, so they're doing a Google Meet with us. I have heard from staff members who've gone on visits that they'll ask some general questions, but then really focus on how the board has supported the high school. And those areas of priority growth being really what I think what they want to hear about. So, for instance, the one about HVAC, so when they came 2 years ago, we had just had a unit ventilator on the roof release and had areas of the school that weren't usable because it had just flooded. And they heard from staff that it is 80 degrees on the third floor, and then in the same classrooms down on the first floor, in the same area, it's 65 degrees and cold. So they, that was something that our staff shared with them that kind of get in the way of instruction and student learning. And so the board has supported that work, and we'll have that fixed this summer. So they're going to be pleased to hear about that.
So who will be our sponsor? Seth?
Seth will, be on the call, I know, and I'll be there as well, but I think they're gonna want to hear from all board members. It's nothing to be scripted. I just wanted to give you some talking points, but they'll want to hear, I think, your opinion of the high school. Yeah.
Well, if I can just, what I'd like to see is like, just so we show some level of organization and some level of expertise in response, like the questions that have to do with facilities, maybe Emily could take the lead on the answer. Ones that are finance related, Galen can take the lead, and ones that are curriculum related.
Personnel, right,
Yeah,
that would make sense.
and then, but other people can feel free to chime in. I think we probably will do what best if we keep our responses crisp. And we don't just make it a huge round robin on every question. But I think if those folks take the lead on those issues, then that'll serve us well. If we do, okay. All right. Any other questions for Craig? All right, thank you. Board member comments? Anyone? Diane, do you have anything to share? Okay, then I will take Craig up on his offer to discuss the upcoming Cave Caps Conference, which is this Friday and Saturday. Generally, I know that several of us are signed up and we'll be going on Friday. I will be representing the board at the Delegates Assembly on Thursday afternoon. As you know, we voted on and are sponsoring one of the proposals that are going forward as a resolution to be voted on regarding state mandates when it comes to curriculum. And that should be interesting, and I think I'm hoping it gets good support, but I'll report back on that. And look forward to seeing you guys that are gonna be there. For anybody who is not registered, you still can, even if you're not registered for the conference, you can still come Friday morning at 10:45 to be part of the picture that, when the commissioner gives us our award for.
Do you have a place where we're gonna meet?
Yeah, it's in what they call the north lobby. So when you pull into the hotel parking lot and you're facing, their round driveway, go to the left and park off to the left of the building. That's the north side, and enter through that side entrance. And as soon as you enter, you'll be confronted with the registration table. If that's where you register also. But if you're not registering for the conference, you just want to be there for the photo, then you still come in that way. And when you see that registration table, make a run, look to the right, and that's usually where they're taking the photo opportunities. So I was asked to be part of the Nutmeg board presentation this year, so that'll be fun. That that Tom Mooney does that crazy
Right.
fun, yeah.
That's fine.
So if anybody wants to sit in on that, that'll be cool. And then the last thing I just wanted to say is, because this is the meeting closest to Veterans Day. You know, we always choose to have meaningful Veterans Day presentations in school rather than taking the day off. Our students seem to appreciate it, as we even heard tonight from our student representative Grace. But you know, I just want to, on behalf of the board, thank all our veterans for their service to our country. Thank you. And unless anyone else has any comments? Going once, going twice. Okay, let's move on. Is there any audience response to information presented? There's no one in the audience. Anyone online? No? Okay. So item 7 is our consent agenda. So action item 8 will be a motion. I'll need a motion to approve the consent agenda. All right, Stephen, and seconded by Emily. Thank you. Any discussion?
Yes, I just had one question on substitute teachers, if we have ahead, behind, on track. In terms of those expenditures, or just a qualitative look, doesn't have to be.
Yeah, I think I can give you a better answer, but I know we're probably behind because of where we started the year off with a couple openings, and then also some maternity leaves that would hit that account. That's not atypical. The board did put more money into that account this year, as you know, but it's typically a line item that we're going to run negative in because of openings, partly because of openings in teacher positions. So ideally, we would be transferring some point during the year to cover that. It's not something that I'm overly concerned with, because if we ever tried to fully fund that with what we anticipated always spending that, we're going to end up then with you know, additional savings in salaries that is kind of unwarranted. You know, it's hard to predict, and you know, we've always been able to cover that from savings and certified salaries. But yeah, it's one of the most volatile lines that we have that we watch all year. Yeah.
Thank you. Any other questions? No? Okay. No further discussion. All in favor, aye. Aye. All opposed, nay. Any abstentions? Motion carries 7-0. Thank you. Action item 9. Or I'm sorry, not action item. Agenda item 9 are the board committee and liaison updates. So first, Stephen, you have a curriculum and student development committee report.
Okay, the curriculum committee met this evening. We had one agenda item. And it's the annual process of the high school amending, adapting, changing, dropping, adjusting their program of studies. In the details of that are in your packet, but let me just speak to the generics of that process, because it is more than what appears in just course names and changes. You know, it's clear that it's a deep process that involves the faculty, certainly, but it also involves students based on their interest and participation and the topics and the career pathways that they would like to see. And so it's, you know, it's a responsive process. Beyond that, there's, you know, clearly a philosophy in place that is guiding this process. And, you know, one of the more prominent ones that really appears is the whole access of, or the whole aspect rather, of providing more access to challenging courses to students. So, you know, toward that end, there's been, you know, over several years, a process of eliminating level 3, which would, you know, historically be the lower level courses from the course offerings and have only level 1 and level 2. And that process is pretty much done, except for one course that will be finished up this year. But the idea that, you know, students ought to have the opportunity to be challenged. And then tracking and supporting students through that process was clear in the presentation tonight. Other aspects are about prerequisites. And again, around the idea of making courses accessible, but also being certain that students are properly prepared, that they have the courses that will allow them to then take the more challenging courses and be successful. Another theme that went through the presentation as well was being responsive to students. I mean, it was great to hear that some of the new offerings, and I'll highlight a couple, really came from student choice and student interest and the desire to have those courses. So, although on paper it looks like, okay, it's the annual thing, they change some course names, drop some, add some, whatever. You know, it reflects a much deeper and responsible process of, you know, evolving and emerging the program of studies for students to be current and responsive and challenging, you know. And I reflect on that when we had the student presentations today, because, you know, we're talking about phone use, but what the theme that kept coming through was, you know, hey folks, our coursework and our work at the school is so challenging, we really don't have a whole lot of time for these other things, you know, and I found that fascinating. So highlighting some of the offerings that are new. Design pre-construction career pathway is new. You can go into the packet and you can see the individual courses that fall under that. It's pretty interesting. Insurance, securities, and investment career pathway. This is really based upon student interest and request, and they were given some choices like, you know, it's fascinating, you know, a course around video games, and the students chose a definite preference for this line versus that one. Other courses, sports and performance nutrition, investment analysis, and production design and modern adaptation. That's in the theater department. A further note was the changing of the civics course to an on-leveled course to remove its impact on class rank and GPA for particularly third trimester seniors. Understanding exactly how that works is a deep dive, but you know, it was presented as being long overdue and helpful to students, because that course in itself, where it falls, can affect class rank by itself. And of course, the students are smart enough to know this, so you know, they would ask to take it online in other places where it wasn't leveled, so they fixed that problem. So it was relatively short, but it was a good meeting, and there was no public comment, and we adjourned at 6 p.m. Any questions?
Questions? Thank you,
End
Stephen.
of report.
Thank you. Facilities Committee, Emily.
Yep, so as you heard, we toured Neck River School construction site this afternoon. I know there's pictures that Zoe shares and posts, so I definitely encourage folks to check it out. It's amazing, and we were saying how a year ago there was nothing, and a year from now the building will be filled with students. So you really get a sense walking around of the layout, and as you saw in the presentation, it's just gonna be it's gonna be a really cool space. So we get a tour, we get to ask questions of the team. One thing that I thought was really nice was the way the cafeteria and gym are kind of in the center of the building, like there's the wings, and then the cafeteria is sort of open to the second floor. So just having like a real community center feeling to the school. It's gonna be great. It's amazing. And there's gonna be a lot happening, sort of close it up in the next few months and then finishing up all the inside stuff. So stay tuned. It was nice to walk around and we get to wear hard hats. That was good. Yep.
Any questions? Thank you. Finance Committee, Galen.
We have not met.
Okay, thank you. Personnel Committee, Maureen.
We also have not met.
Okay. Policy Committee, Diane, that's you.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, thanks for doing
Okay.
it.
Okay, so the policy committee met on October 29th. And we discussed all of the policies actually that you see in your packet tonight. You should have a copy of the notes from Shipman and Goodwin. Tonight, the action items are for policies to be rescinded and waive the second read. And then you have a first read for the rest of the policies. So I just wanted to draw your attention to, well, first I'll tell you that the policies for tonight for rescission are policies 6080, educating students in the core educational program, 6080.13, teaching about religion, 6080.20.1, remedial instruction, 6080.22, homebound hospital instruction, 6080.29.3, career and vocational education. And those are up for, again, to waive the second read and rescission tonight. Then the policies for first review, first reading tonight were the policies we discussed in this meeting. And I just wanted to call your attention to the fact that policy 1370, non-discrimination, is in the community series, with policy 4118.1 also non-discrimination, and that's in the personnel series. And then 5020.1 is non-discrimination in the student series. So all of the changes that were made were to comply with state statute and public acts. And so across the board, all of the non-discrimination policies were updated in the same way. And then if you look also at policy 4118.14, section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act of 1973 and Title II of the Americans with Disabilities Act of 1990 is in the personnel series. And then the corresponding student series number 5200, also they were updated for the similar reasons of trying to be in line with the state statutes and public acts. And then 4030.5, family and medical leave. This is another policy that had to be revised in order to be compliant with a new public act. So a lot of these policies you have seen recently, and they are constantly being updated in Hartford. So you will see them again and again and again with new updates pretty much every year. So those are in your packet. Again, those were the first read for the rescind and replace. And there was no public comment, and the meeting adjourned at 4:58 after starting at 4:33. End of report.
Any questions? Yes, go ahead.
Statement. You know, in my review of the policies, I zeroed in on 608, educating students in core educational program. And, you know, part of my original concern looking at it was, although it clearly is outdated in many ways, you know, making statements about our protocols and how we approach core instruction need to be clearly stated. So I felt like maybe this is something that needs to be revamped on further investigation and discussion. You know, the areas of importance seem to be covered the way they should be in the 6,000 line. So I just wanted to put that forward, that, you know, rescinding 6080 doesn't leave a gap that is of concern, you know, and it is, you know, it is not at all reflective of what we're currently doing.
Yeah. And that, thank you, Stephen. That does happen. It bears repeating occasionally. So I'll take this opportunity. Sometimes it may look bad that we're rescinding a particular policy that has a name, a title that sounds like, oh, why are you rescinding that? You know, it sounds like you want to have non-discrimination policies, for example. The fact is, usually when we're rescinding something, it's either already covered by federal or state law. So our law firm is recommending that we don't need to keep a separate policy for it. Or we have reincorporated some of the same concepts in a new different policy or a combined policy that's consolidated or something like that. So you need not get worried that we're taking out important things as we work to streamline and make our set of policies and bylaws more accessible. So thank you, good point. All right, next is Learn Liaison, Mary Ann.
So meeting this Thursday, which I can't go to, I don't know if anyone said they could. But if not, I did let them know and they do send a synopsis, so I will be able to tell you what went on Thursday.
Thank you, and actually, Mary, I sent an email out, I don't know if all of you saw it yet or not. Mary Ann has a conflict with this coming Thursday and also the following month, which is December. It's the second Tuesday, Thursday. It's like the 12th, I think it is, December. If anybody can attend either one of those, please let me know. And you get a free breakfast with it. And thank you very much.
They're very nice, yeah.
Yeah.
Where do those meetings take place?
So it's at the Learn building, which is in Old Line.
Old Line.
It's right off the
Exit
highway.
73, I think. It's right off the highway.
So, all right, thank you.
If not, I'll have a report.
Okay, thank you, Mary Ann. All right, so we're on to action item 10. I need a motion to waive the second reading and rescind the following policies. 6080, educating students in the core educational program. 6080.13, teaching about religion. 6080.20.1, remedial instruction. 6080.22, homebound / hospital instruction. And 6080.29.3, career and vocational education. Do I have a motion? Mary Ann, do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, Emily, thank you. Any further discussion on rescinding those just named? No, if no further discussion, I'll call the question. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Any abstentions? Motion carries 7-0. Thank you. Action item 11. I need a motion to approve a donation from the Daniel Hand High School Gymnastics Boosters Club to Daniel Hand High School Athletics in the amount of $2,083 for a gymnastics mat. What's Emily? That's motion. Can I get a second? Mary Ann, thank you. Any discussion on this?
Just to express our gratitude.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you to the Booster Club. All right, if no further discussion, all in favor, aye. All opposed, nay. Any abstentions? Motion carries 7-0. Thank you. Action item 12. I need a motion to approve the minutes of the October 22nd, 2024 Board of Education meeting. So move, Stephen. Do I have a second? I'll second you. Thank you. Any requested changes, edits, discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, aye. All opposed, nay. Any abstentions? One abstention from Diane. So that will carry 6-0-1. Thank you very much. Any requested future agenda items? No? Finally, I will entertain a motion to adjourn. So moved. Stephen?
Okay.
Seconded by Maureen. Adjourn at 8:30.
Yeah.
All right, all in favor, aye. All opposed, nay. Any abstentions? All right, motion carries 7-0. There's always unanimity on that.